Yes, would Senator Kruger yield to a few questions?
Senator Kruger, will you yield?
Yes, Madam President.
I and the other members of the Republican conference, many members are very concerned about another extender.
Excuse me, Senator DeFrancisco, could we have some quiet in the House while we debate this bill? Thank you. Proceed, please.
And you gave us an explanation last week that negotiations were ongoing and that because of that, as soon as the negotiations reach a critical mass, then we're going to have conference committees. Can you give us a report, being the chairman of finance of the majority party, the Democrat Party who runs this House, what the status of the negotiations are from the last time we did this to the present day? What's happened?
Ongoing.
But would Senator Kruger yield to another question?
Senator?
Madam President.
Yes, Senator Kruger will yield.
You know, if Senator Kruger, I would imagine that that's maybe humorous to you, but there's constituents of my district.
My response was not meant to be humorous.
Well, then maybe would he yield to another question?
Senator Kruger, will you
Absolutely.
continue to yield?
All right, now I'd like to ask a specific question. What negotiations took place from last week to this week, last extender to this week, and what parties were present?
There have been numerous meetings. I do not have dates, times, and places, but there are ongoing negotiations. The negotiations are between the Senate, the Assembly, and the governor.
Would Senator Kruger yield to another question?
Senator
Yes,
Kruger?
I would, Madam President.
Senator Kruger, would you tell the Republican conference who from the Assembly, who from the governor's office, and who from the Senate participated in those negotiations for the last week?
Leadership.
Would Senator Kruger yield to another question?
Senator Kruger,
Yes, I would, Madam
Senator
President.
Kruger will yield.
So you're referring to the governor, Senator Sampson, and Assembly Speaker Silver, correct?
Or their surrogates.
Okay. Would Senator Kruger yield to another question?
Yes, Senator Kruger, will you continue to yield?
Yes, I would, Madam
Were
President.
any leaders from the minority parties in each house, either house, did any of them participate in these ongoing negotiations, the dates of which you are not familiar with?
As I said, the meetings were held between the Senate, the Assembly, and the governor's office.
Would Senator Kruger yield again to another question?
Yes, I would, Madam
Yes,
President.
yes.
That didn't answer the question. The question was, was any member of the Republican minority in the Senate or the Republican minority in the Assembly, did any of them participate in the negotiations, the places of which, the times of which you don't recall, you don't know?
Well, I guess if I would like to answer the question, my question then, I ask you a question. Were you party to the negotiations?
Senator Kruger, are you asking Senator DeFrancisco?
Yes,
to
I
yield?
am, Madam President.
Senator DeFrancisco, will you yield from question?
No, I was not.
Because
No, I was not, nor was I invited, nor was any member that I'm aware of this Republican minority conference invited or told of the dates, times, or places of those meetings. So my question again, Senator Kruger, is were any from your, do you know of any, no, not you know, were any Republicans, minority members in either house invited, the leadership invited those meetings?
Through you, Madam President. Last Wednesday, I believe, yes, on Wednesday of last week, we sent a letter and we invited the minority side, the Republican side of this House, to attend an open forum in the form of a committee meeting. Call it a mothership, call it whatever you want. And I should report back to you, as you will well know, myself, Senator Sampson, and the rest of the Democratic leadership of this House was in attendance, and no one, I repeat, no one from the minority party participated.
Would Senator Kruger yield?
That was our invitation.
Would Senator Kruger yield to another question?
Yes, I would, Madam President.
Senator Kruger, that meeting, that one House meeting, the public meeting that you just referred to, were you referring to that as the leaders' negotiations that have been taking place over the last week?
Through you, Madam President, no, I'm talking about a House meeting that you did not participate in.
Thank you. Now, would Senator Kruger yield to another question?
Yes, I would, Madam President.
Senator Kruger yields.
Now, in order to make it very clear to you so you don't get confused about a one-house public display that you put on, my question is, was any Republican minority member, leadership or otherwise, in either the Senate or the Assembly, were they invited or participate in the negotiations that you referred to have been ongoing?
Through you, Madam President, the meeting of Wednesday, as part of that negotiating process, was for the minority party of this House to present in open forum its plan of action, its vision, its roadmap toward a budget. So in practical terms, and in very, very simple terms, since you allege that I might get confused, let me try to keep it simple in my own mind. I'm getting on now, I'm 60 years old, so I don't know if I can handle it. But in very, very simple terms, that open forum set the process for what would be the continued, yes, negotiation to come to a conclusion and a budget.
Would Senator Kruger yield to another question?
Yes, I would, Madam President.
Senator Kruger continues to yield.
I'm going to ask the question one last time, and then maybe the general public who hopefully is watching this, these so-called answers to the questions, legitimate questions, the private negotiations that have been ongoing between leadership, the dates of which you have no clue and when they were or what the result of those meetings were that are ongoing. Were any Republican minority members in either House invited to those private negotiations that have to reach a critical mass before there's going to be a budget conference committee? Yes or no? Can you answer that?
Through you, Madam President, once again, to reiterate, that so-called public meeting that you refused to recognize was this House, the majority attempt to begin the process and to continue the process, since we continued it long prior to that, to have an open forum so you could present your budget resolution, your roadmap towards continued negotiation. That was the totality of the Wednesday meeting that the Republican minority refused to participate in.
On the bill.
Senator DeFrancisco, Senator Kruger actually has the floor as an explanation was requested, so we will call on you.
He sat down.
I've completed my presentation.
Thank you, Senator Kruger. Senator DeFrancisco on the bill.
I just hope that this dialogue is on videotape, and this video is transmitted to every district throughout the state of New York. Unfortunately, the general public has this conception that both the Republican minority and the leadership in the Senate, the Democrats, are somehow holding up this budget process. And it's the legislature. Well, it's not the legislature, ladies and gentlemen. It's pretty obvious from these questions that what's been going on is closed-door meetings among the Democrats in the state of New York, the Democrats from New York City. And those Democrats are Senator John Sampson, Speaker Silver, and the governor.